Hello folks, I'm Milton Crabapple, and I'm a-cooking. So what we're going to do today, folks, is we're going to make squirrel dumplings. Now that's one of my all-time favorite cold, rainy, winter day meals, and that's what it's like outside today. So I'm going to show you how to make squirrel dumplings. Now, if you want to make squirrel dumplings, the first thing you got to have is you got to have a squirrel. Now, of course, I've already dressed this squirrel, but this is a nice squirrel. He's not a big, tough, mature squirrel. He's a fairly young squirrel. He'll be tender. He'll be really nice for dumplings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop him up into about 5 or 6 pieces, and I'm going to put him in a pan of water to parboil him. I'm going to add some salt and black pepper. So let's go ahead and do that now. First we're going to separate these back legs good. These are my favorite part. We're going to put those legs in the water, and then we're going to get the back portion. That's real tender meat too. And what I'll probably do is just go ahead and separate these 2 front legs and leave the ribs on them and everything. That'll give me about 5 good pieces. Now some people like to bone out their squirrel before they cook it, but I don't like to do that. Let me put some pepper in there. I don't like to do that, just like I don't like to bone out a chicken leg. I like to pick it up and eat it. I like to pick up ribs and eat them. I don't like to try to cut the meat off of the ribs. And when I'm eating fish, small fish like a catfish, I just like to pick it up and eat it. So it always tastes better if it comes right off the bone. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. Now we're going to just go put that on. We're going to let it parboil, probably for about an hour till it gets real tender enough for my dumplings. And then I'll show you how to make the dumplings and finish off the stew. So stay tuned. So there's my squirrel. It's boiling away in there. I'm going to let it just cook on low, just a slow rolling boil, probably for about an hour till it gets real tender. And then we'll come back and we'll make our dumplings, and then we'll make our squirrel dumplings. Now, while my squirrel is parboiling over here, getting tender, I want to say a little bit of something to you about recipes. I don't like recipes much because all a recipe is one person's thoughts on how to cook something. They might like it saltier than you do. They might like more or less pepper than you do. They might like it more watery or runny, or they might like it drier. You just never know. They might like one kind of flour and say that's all you got to use, but you may like another kind of flour. So all a recipe is a guideline. It's just a guideline to get you started. And once you cook something once, like these squirrel dumplings, you oughtn't to need a recipe anymore, because then you just add your own personal touch to it, your own style. You put what you like in there, bigger dumplings, smaller dumplings. You can use self-rising flour, you can use plain flour, you can roll them out, you can wad them up, you can choke them off, you can cut them out, you can do whatever you want to do. All you got to have is, if you want to make the squirrel dumplings, it's a squirrel, and you got to parboil it till it gets tender. You can put some butter, salt, and pepper in it like I'm going to do. You're going to watch me make it, but then you can make it any way you want to make it, because you're just limited by your own creativity. If you got common sense, that's all you need is common sense. You can cook it and add your style. Now, if you can't cook it without a recipe, you ain't got common sense. You don't need to be around a gas stove, I'll tell you that, or electric stove. You're going to burn the goddamn house down. All right, my squirrel meat's been cooking for a little over an hour now. It's tender. I checked it out. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to add about a tablespoon full of butter to my broth in there with my squirrel meat, and I'm just going to let that melt in there. And I'm going to let it cook for just a little while longer while I make my dumplings. All right, I'm going to make my dumplings now, and as you can see, I got about maybe a cup and a half of self-rising flour in here. Sometimes I use Martha White, sometimes I use White Lily. I believe Ma Crabapple bought this. It just says self-rising. That's what I like to use. Now, some people use plain flour, like I say. This is the way I make it. It's real simple. I'm going to add a little buttermilk in there. Not a whole lot. And then I'm just going to begin to mix it up with a spoon. Some people get in there with their hands and mix it all up. You can do the same thing with a spoon. Your hands stay a little cleaner because I got to do other stuff, but I just keep mixing it in there good. Now, I'm not making a big batch of squirrel dumplings because Ma Crabapple don't like squirrel dumplings. She never did develop a taste for them, so I just make enough for me. I'm going to eat the whole pot of squirrel dumplings, so I don't need that many dumplings. This is just for one person. But I just keep mixing it around in this bowl till it gets to a pretty dry consistency. It all gets mixed up good. I'll just keep mixing it in. Because what I want to do is make my dumplings into little balls. A lot of people like to say they roll them out. They got all kinds of stuff and makes an awful mess when you got to do all of that. I like to keep it simple. So I'm just keep mashing them up here. This dough, I'm kneading it, that's what I'm doing, but you notice my hands are still clean and I ain't making a mess. And it's just about get right. This ain't brain surgery, making squirrel dumplings. Just keep. I don't like too fluffy of a dumpling or too stiff of a dumpling. I like them somewhere in between. My sister Cornelia likes hers real fluffy. They're good dumplings, but I don't like mine quite as fluffy as she does, but she makes a good dumpling, I'm telling you. All right, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get a little flour in my hands there, and I'm just going to take a piece of this dough. I'm going to roll it up. There's one dumpling. Ain't nothing to it. They don't have to be beautiful dumplings because they're all going to look the same once you cook them. Just rolling them up. I'll make me a few of them. I won't be able to eat all of this. I just believe in the old, what they call the KISS principle, K-I-S-S. Keep it simple, stupid. I don't like to clean up messes when I can help it, so I try to be a neat cook when I cook. I like to cook a lot better than Ma Crabapple does. I reckon she had to cook for so many years, she's kind of tired of it, but she ain't as partial to wild game as I am. So a lot of times when I cook wild game stuff, I just cook it for myself. I might have one of my friends over to try some. And that right there is probably a plenty of dumplings for me. So I'm going to set these aside. Then I'm going to take my squirrel meat out of the pan. I'm going to put it on a plate, and I'm going to add my dumplings. Then when my dumplings swell up good and they get good and done, then I'll just dump my squirrel back in there, stir it around, and then I'll be ready to eat. This is a real simple meal. So here we go now. I'm going to take my squirrel meat out of my broth. I'm going to lay it on this plate. Don't that look good? And like I say, I like it with the bones in it. I like to pick it up and meat just falls right off the bone, but it's just like eating chicken legs or anything else. I like to eat it right off the bone. Now I'm going to add my dumplings. There they go. I'm going to put them in there and I'm going to stir them around a little bit, and I'm going to turn my heat up. Get them to boiling a good bit faster. I'm going to put the lid on them for a few minutes and let them just sit there and cook. Well, they've been in there about a minute. I'm gonna stir them around a little bit. That's good. Look at them. They're swelling right up. Now I'm gonna put the lid on. Let them cook another few minutes. All right, them dumplings have been cooking for a few minutes now, and they've cooked down. They're looking really good. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna dump my squirrel meat back in the dumplings. Now, I forgot to tell you, I added about 1/4 cup of milk in there also, because that kind of thickens up and makes it a little richer. I forgot to tell you that. Just add a little milk to it if you want. I don't always add milk to it, like I say. But I did this time. Sometimes I do. Don't that look good? Now I'm just going to let that sit there and cook till my squirrel meat gets warm again. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off and just let that sit there for a while I clean up some of my mess, and then I'm going to be ready to serve it up and eat a bowl full of it. All right, my dumplings and my squirrel have been sitting there for a few minutes, and I imagine it's ready to eat, so I'm going to serve me up a bowl full of it, and then I'm going to go sit down and have some fun eating me some squirrel dumplings. Yes, sir. Don't that look good? Give me just a little bit of juice in there. Excuse me while I go enjoy myself. Well, folks, I sure wish you could have been with me to eat them squirrel dumplings. Yes, I'm so full I need to go find me a place to lay down and take a nap or watch a ball game. But one thing I want to leave you with is this. Now, if you're like me and sometimes you get a piece of meat or food stuck in your teeth and you're out at a restaurant or over at somebody's house, and it's just aggravating you to death because you got a hunk of meat hung in your tooth, I always just open up my wallet and pull out my squirrel leg bone toothpick. Yes, sir. That's the fibula bone. That's a small bone out of a squirrel's back leg. It's as hard as steel. It lasts you a lifetime, and it makes the best toothpick in the world. I don't ever go nowhere without it. You ought to have one with you too. I'm Milton Crabapple, and thanks for watching this episode of I'm a Cookin'. Be sure to visit miltoncrabapple.com, check out all my CDs, DVDs, and downloads. Become a member of my fan club. Visit the website today. Much obliged.